good afternoon and welcome. My name is Diane Seddon and I'm based at the Centre for Ageing and Dementia Research at Bangor University, and I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you this afternoon to all of you who are joining the seminar looking at effective partnership working to deliver pre-bereavement support to people affected by dementia. So, during today's event, we're going to be hearing about a collaborative project partnering Cruse Bereavement Support Cymru and the Alzheimer Society Cymru to provide pre-bereavement support to people affected by a diagnosis of dementia. We know that continuous losses are experienced by people affected by dementia before the physical death, resulting in feelings of grief. And very often these feelings of grief prior to death go unrecognised by society, meaning that people with dementia they struggle to resolve and come to terms with what they're experiencing, and also that people may experience complicated grief reactions after the person living with dementia has died. So, working in partnership, Cruse Bereavement Care Cymru and Alzheimer Society Cymru sought to address people's unmet needs for help and support by developing and delivering an innovative pre-bereavement service with support from Gwent Regional Partnership Board Integrated Care Fund. We have several speakers contributing to today's event who've been involved in the design and the delivery of the pre-bereavement support service. There'll be opportunities to hear stories and reflections from people with lived experience of dementia who have worked closely with the project partners to share the importance of discussing feelings of loss and grief openly after a diagnosis of dementia. We'll also be hearing about an independent evaluation of the project undertaken by colleagues at the Centre for Ageing and Dementia Research, who will share key findings from the evaluation and will also be launching the evaluation report. There'll also be opportunities to hear from the project partners about their plans for practice development going forward, and we will have a Q&A session at the end where you're welcome to ask panel members about the pre-bereavement service and also the evaluation. Just to say that today we'd welcome your contributions both in Welsh and in English, and please feel free to post your comments in the chat. We have simultaneous translation available, and I'd like to introduce our translator, Lowry, who will explain how this is going to work. So over to you, Lowry.
Pnawn da. In a moment, a globe will appear at the bottom of your screen. You'll need to click on the globe, select English and possibly done, and we welcome all Welsh contributions, and those will be translated for those of you who switch on the English channel. Diolch yn fawr iawn. If you could switch the translation on, please. Diolch.
So for me, today's event showcases an excellent example of partnership working involving people affected by dementia, third sector organisations and also researchers. And for those of you who are not familiar with CADA, just wanted to say a few words about us. So we're a Pan-Wales research centre that aims to work in partnership to improve the lives of people with dementia and those involved in supporting them through the better integration of research, policy and practice. And as a centre, we're committed to working together with key stakeholders to co-design and to co-deliver impactful research. And crucially, we undertake research that strengthens the evidence base for policy and practice here in Wales and beyond in order to realise positive changes for people affected by dementia. And partnership working is really key to this. And we have a work package that is dedicated to public and professional engagement, which provides us with a platform for successful collaborations to hopefully achieve significant public benefit. And I'm really delighted that we can share an example of our collaborative work with you today, and trust that you find today's event both interesting and informative. So we're going to begin by showing a short animation about our work package, and there is a chat in the link should anybody wish to select the Welsh language animation.
The researchers who work for Caerau couldn't do their work without involving a wide range of other people. This includes older people, unpaid carers, professionals and academics. Through listening to people's lived experiences, we get fresh ideas for research projects which we think can make a real impact for individuals and society. And by engaging with relevant individuals and organisations at all stages of our research, we can ensure that it stays relevant and accessible to all. It is this external involvement and engagement which helps us to create, develop and communicate research which makes a difference to the quality of life and well-being of older people and those who support them, and the development of health and social care services and the work of practitioners. So if you or your organisation could become part of our story to improve the lives of older people and their unpaid carers in Wales, find out more, get involved, visit us at www.cader.cymru.
Okay, so having set the scene, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Maxine Norris, who is the project manager for Cruse bereavement support. And Maxine is going to describe the origins and the development of the pre-bereavement support service and tell us about the organisations working across Wales to support people affected by dementia. So over to you, Maxine.
Hello, I'm Maxine, and I've had the great pleasure of being able to manage the pre-bereavement support service for people affected by dementia. I've been working with Cruse bereavement support and in partnership with the Alzheimer Society. We've had a focus to provide timely access for people affected by dementia, for support to cope with their feelings of loss and grief along the journey with dementia. Today, I'm just going to share a little bit with you about the journey and how the partnership working has enabled us really to achieve more together for people with dementia and affected by dementia. So I'm going to start at the very beginning of the journey, actually, which was in 2016, when we were very fortunate as an organisation to have funding from Welsh Government. And so in partnership with the Alzheimer Society, we were able to develop a service to provide bereavement support for people experiencing dementia or caring for somebody with dementia. So the project ran for 3 years and then had a year extension, which was a real bonus because it really allowed us to in-ground that service. And the service was, the model really was perfect for us to lift and transfer over to the project that we've been running more recently. Aston University were able to provide our external evaluation report with Dr. Karen West. And one of their recommendations were that actually this service should carry on, but also it was identified really early on in the work that we did together that people affected by dementia really wanted support for pre-bereavement loss along those journeys, the journey with dementia, and there's just so many of them. You'll be hearing from Margaret and Teresa, who were part and parcel of delivering the training, both internally to volunteers and externally to outside organisations. And they'll be talking to you about their involvement and how they were really able to help, not just deliver training, but they really inspired and they brought the whole training alive, particularly Teresa's stories. It was actually education to myself around language, appropriate language that are acceptable for people affected by dementia, and also then with the development of resources. So then moving on, so, Aston University did recommend a continuation of the service. And we were really lucky to be provided with ICF funding from the Gwent Regional Partnership Board. The funding was received in 2019, and we've received just over 2 years funding to provide and develop this service. Straight on from there, the advisory and steering groups were set up. Many of the members that were already working with us from the previous project were very keen to continue the work with the pre-bereavement project. And so that was wonderful to be able to bring that expertise with us. Many of the advisory group members sort of weave in and out, depending on what was developing, whether it was resources or training. We were so lucky to be able to have access to the Alzheimer Society expert opinion groups and different friendship groups around Wales. These groups will enable us to really focus in on what they found was going to be very helpful to them, but also what they felt would be really useful for our volunteers to be aware of, supporting people with pre-bereavement loss affected by dementia. As part of that work, we worked with the Alzheimer's training department, and Sue Bruin was absolutely amazing. This lady has young onset dementia herself, and she's been able to co-develop both training modules. The training module for the bereavement module 1, supporting people through bereavement. And with that module, our volunteers have got lots and lots of information given to them to raise their awareness of dementia and what it might be like to be caring for somebody, and what the diagnosis of that might mean to somebody. Module 2, which was developed with this more recent project, again has a workbooklet alongside it and really deals with pre-bereavement support. Other resources have been developed also by the project, and you just get a little picture of them on your screen now, the conversation cue cards. And again, it was the people with dementia and affected by dementia that suggested what might be useful for them to have. And this was certainly something that's been really well received. So putting this and developing the service, developing the resources, really was a massive effort, and how so many people were involved from different organisations. Our trainers were trained, and they started delivering the training come June, July time in 2020. All the training was originally developed to be delivered person to person within a training environment, a room, etc. And it slowed the delivery of the training because COVID hit. The majority of this project has actually been delivered during the COVID lockdown period. But it has worked very well. We have been able to adapt, we've been able to be flexible. The trainers have done the most amazing job with the limitations of just narrowing down the content of the training and delivering both module 1 and 2 in 3-hour sessions. The training has been delivered to both our new volunteers, our existing volunteers, but also to external organisations. In July 2020, we were able to start a collaboration working with Bangor University and Dr. Catherine Head-Jones' team. So we're really, really fortunate that they've been on board and have been able to write our external evaluation report. And following on this whistle-stop tour of the development of the service, we've been able to support 168 clients, and that was to January. We've had more since then. It's been 180 clients now. So these clients have all received up to 6 sessions per referral of either telephone support, Zoom support, or group support via Zoom. Most referrals have been received from the Alzheimer Society or Admiral nursing teams across Wales. Clients are able to refer back into the service as more changes are experienced, and again they can receive up to 6 sessions of support per new referral. We do endeavour to try and keep the same volunteer if that's possible for the clients as they return. We've exceeded the number of our outcome targets in practically every element that we set out to achieve. So during the life of the project, we've been able to recruit 72 brand new volunteers to Cruse who have attended there and trained as bereavement volunteers, and then all the mandatory models on top. And then they've done module 1 and module 2 of the dementia specific training to equip them to support people affected by dementia more sensitively and effectively. We've gone on to do many internal and external module 2 deliveries. At the moment, we are delivering 6 sessions into an Ira Bevan Health Board. And that's just a very brief whistle-stop tour. It's a massive amount of work gone into the project, and you can see just how many people of internal and external organisations that have worked to make this the project it's become, and to provide this wonderful pre-bereavement support that has been so valued along the way. And really, with this partnership working, we have all achieved so much more for the people affected by dementia together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maxine, for that introduction. So our next speakers are Margaret Carman and Teresa Davies. So Margaret is a Cruse bereavement counsellor and trainer, and Teresa is a member of CADA and the DEEP network, which is the Dementia Empowerment and Engagement Network. And their presentation is going to reflect on their experiences of meeting one another and also supporting one another, and their involvement with the pre-bereavement support service. So over to you both, Margaret and Teresa.
Thank you very much indeed. So my name's Margaret Carman, and my colleague is...
I'm Teresa Davies, but go by Dory, from Flintshire.
And we wanted to share a little of the magic of our meeting, which looks a little different for each of us, and then how we got involved in this fabulous project. So the start is how we met. And I called it sock buddy support, and Teresa or Dory is my sock buddy, and I'll explain why. Teresa was a neighbour of mine. I knew I was having a new hip, and I'd had one several years before, and I knew what I needed was a sock buddy. Because if you've had a new hip, you can't put your socks on for weeks. So I didn't know anybody in the neighbourhood that well, but I'd seen this lovely lady walking her dog, and she always had a lovely smile. So I asked her, and I said, what I want is, I just want you to come round to my place, 8:30, Monday to Friday, because I'm all right for the weekends. I've got somebody at the weekends. But Monday to Friday, 8:30 in the morning for 6 weeks, just to put my socks on. And you know, she did. And it became so much more. And I talked to her about Cruse bereavement, and she talked to me about many other things. So that's my take on how we met. Teresa, it felt a bit different for you, didn't it?
It did. I used to see Margaret, but I didn't know her name or anything, but I'd see her going for her walks. And then, as she said, she stopped me this day. Said she'd like someone to come and put her socks on. And I did think, oh, very strange woman, she's a bit bossy. But being the helpful person I'd like to think I am, I agreed. And while I was doing her socks, sometimes her legs looked dry, so I'd put some cream on. And we were talking, and I told Margaret that I had a diagnosis of dementia. And Margaret told me what she does, and we discussed sort of working together on the training.
We reckoned there was a need, didn't we? That there was an awful lot of a gap between when people were diagnosed with dementia and the ongoing loss. So we were excited to get involved. I've got control. Yeah. Working. We were really passionate about the topic. We'd become quite good friends. So we were really passionate about the topic, about being bereaved by dementia and the ongoing support that was needed. I trained to run the workshop by Cruse and Alzheimer's and met the fabulous Maxine, and then introduced Teresa to Maxine, and we were involved, as Teresa was very much involved in the creating of the resource booklets.
Yeah.
We ran 2 practice workshops with Cruse volunteers. Wow, they were a bit scary for us, weren't they, Teresa? They were in a lovely location, but I had 17 items to get through. And Teresa and I, much as we loved each other, we haven't worked together, and we can both talk for Britain, can't we, darling?
Yeah.
It was actually in managing our time that was something that we had to work on, but it was such great fun, and we were determined that it was not going to be the miserable topic that some people thought they were coming along to. So we've run 5 workshops since with 100+ delegates. And for me, delivering the day with Teresa, who lives with dementia, has been crucial to making the experience a real one for people who attend.
Oh, thank you.
Teresa, you
Yes,
get fabulous feedback.
I was very nervous because I hadn't done any training with counsellors and things for bereavement, and not worked with Margaret either. And as she said, we both can talk for Britain, but Margaret was very good at telling me to shut up.
I see Margaret, yep.
But some people at the beginning, some of the volunteers who came along for the training, looked a bit, can I say, disinterested at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the day, because it's usually a lovely sunny day outside, and but at the end, they all said they were so glad they came, because Margaret and I, although we made it very educational, we also made it fun, and there was plenty of laughs as well as being serious, and they all said they'd learned so much more about dementia and the language. And
this is a little bit about your story, Dory. Tell people a bit about you.
yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was 59. Didn't know anything about dementia, because you don't think you're going to get it at 59. I now know differently. And I was just lost. I was given this diagnosis of dementia, and everybody, I was just left then, and people treated me different. My daughter, my family. I became this person who couldn't sort of speak for herself or have an opinion. So I felt really lost and depressed. And then through a dementia friend session I was asked to go along to by a friend, I learned a bit more about dementia. Not that much, I must say, but a bit of an awareness. And the gentleman that was giving the session at the end said he was Chris Roberts, and he had dementia. And we got chatting, and I was quite shocked because he was only 52, I think. And he was laughing, and I thought, oh. And then he got me involved with the Deep Network. And then since then, meeting so many other people living as well as they can with dementia and being activists and speaking out, I don't feel alone anymore, and I want to help other people feel like that. and I've spoke at Congress. I've been on the TV, in the paper, on YouTube, and now a Cruse and bereavement awareness champion. So the story.
Tell them how you got your tattoo.
Oh yes, I took my granddaughter, who was 8 at the time, to watch the film Finding Dory. So she started calling me Nanny Dory. And then I was asked to speak at the UK Dementia Congress at Brighton. And it was the first time people with dementia had opened up the Congress. There was like 800 professionals in the room. Anyway, they said it was the best Congress there'd been. And I came up for an award. And my friend who I was with, I shan't mention names, but it wasn't Margaret anyway. She said, we should do something to make this special so I can remember this day, this time. And so we went into a tattoo parlour, and I had a tattoo on the bottom of my leg of Dory. So I'm known now in the dementia world as Dory. And my daughter said, why on earth would you get a fish on your leg? And I says, well, when I forget who I am, I'll look at my leg and say, I'm Dory. Yeah.
How lovely. And one of the hotels we went to actually had a lounge called the Dory Lounge, didn't it?
Yes, they knew I was
Which really
coming.
made us smile. So, Teresa, when we were doing our workshops, one of the things I, as a Cruse bereavement counsellor and trainer, did was to go through some of the grief models. And this one was one that you particularly related to, wasn't it? So if I'm just popping this up for you, this is Louise Tonkin's Growing Around Grief. Do you remember what it meant for you with the dementia?
Yes, and at the training, Margaret would say about it, talk about the grief. And I associated it with my dementia, because when you get your diagnosis, there's just this big hole, and it's never going to get smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to be that big hole. And so after getting out there and getting involved with deep, I've built a different life around it. So although that dementia, that hole is still there, I probably might get bigger, who knows? But I just keep building different things into my life, like talking at conferences, educating people. I've got an allotment now, just doing so many other things.
And the idea about the grief was that Lois Tonkin says the model is about grief is all consuming when you first are in deep grief, but that there had been a theory that it got smaller, like Dory was describing about dementia, but it doesn't. For a lot of people, it doesn't get smaller. The memory stays the same, but you build a life around it. And that's the one that we really related to. And you could tell in the group when we did the training on this one that up until then, people had been going, this is a bit theoretical. And suddenly the two things came together. It was a very meaningful moment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm just a little bit about my story. I have a lovely gentleman in my life who has ill health, various heart attacks, strokes, and as a result of that, that's one of the reasons I got involved in learning more about grief and managing grief, and managing hopefully being able to predict and understand more about how grief models worked. So I wanted more understanding. But by working with Teresa, I am also, I think, a better carer, and we have the most fabulous friendship, and it's been very precious. So it's given us a fabulous forum, hasn't it? And we've had just great fun.
Yes, we have. And I was even at Margaret's wedding.
Coming to that bit, lovey. Hold that thought. So the reason we had at the front hip hop to make a difference, MAD, is that hip hop was the sock bit and putting the socks on when I had a new hip. The MAD is we make a difference. And we certainly know that we do, because it wasn't just in the workshops, but it was afterwards. So sitting in the car on the way home, Teresa would read the feedback sheets. And they usually went something like, Teresa was amazing. Teresa was fabulous. Oh, she's just incredible. And I'd go, do they mention me at all? But so many of them did say that they'd expected a day that would be depressing, sad. And although there'd been lots of feelings and emotions there, that they had been able to really encompass what they needed to encompass from it. So the next bit, Teresa, was the ahora. Ahora is now in Spanish because I married that long-term love, still got his health issues. Teresa was absolutely fabulous at the wedding. She read this wonderful poem, and another star in the making, even at that. We had to video it. So I married my long-term love. I now live in Spain with him for his health. We live the dream in the sunshine. And I'm still involved with bereavement and funeral planning and grief counselling, because here in Spain, things happen very quickly. Somebody does not have weeks to plan a funeral. Somebody dies, and within the next 24, 48 hours, there is some sort of some process, mainly cremation, but you can imagine what that does for grief. And I'm also discovering there's such a huge need for a better understanding of dementia too. So that's how my life has moved on. And the lovely Dory, her story continues to grow. So
here I am, 8 years on now from when I was diagnosed, when I was told my life expectancy would be 5 to 8 years. And you do take what you're told as gospel. You know, you're told that's your life expectancy. And that, well, you imagine being told, you know, it really brings you down. But don't take it as gospel, because I'll say 8 years on, I've got this allotment with direct payments, because somebody in social services got it that direct payments could be used for well-being, not just for respite, or because this is my respite, but something I enjoy doing. So I come down here, and sometimes I don't do any work, I just bring my book, because I haven't got a garden at home. I come down here, I see people, other allotmenteers, we have a chat, we swap food, I can listen to the birds, grow my own produce, so I'm eating healthy, I'm getting my exercise. Plus it's something I love, it's for me, it's mine. I can do what I want on it, not in a day sense of people telling me what to do, but this for my well-being. It's just lifted my spirits, and during COVID, the lockdown, it's been a lifesaver to me, because instead of just sitting in, especially with dementia, if you just sit in the dementia takes you over because you lose all your social skills and any other skills, and you just get depressed and worse. So coming down here, especially since I used to be a landscape gardener, all my skills I find are coming back to me. So thanks to direct payments, really. It's lovely mixing with people that haven't got dementia. A lot don't know I have dementia, so they treat me, normal, like they would speak to any other people. I have told a couple because they asked why I've called it loss of plot. So I say, it's because I've got early onset dementia, and then they'll start a conversation, and then I can educate them because they'll say, my mother's got, what should we do? I mean, since I got the direct payments for the allotment, I feel I've got a purpose again. I've got to come and water it. I can chat to people. I get the pleasure from sowing the seeds to looking after them, watering them, keeping them safe, to harvesting and eating them. And that gives me a purpose, instead of having my purpose taken away by being told, you've got to go into a care home or a day centre or memory cafes, or do something you enjoy doing. So it's given me back purpose in my life. People treat me as me, not the lady with dementia, or I'm just Teresa. I've lost the plot.
Thank you for letting us share.
So thank you both, Margaret and Teresa. Your contributions to the early development of this support are clearly invaluable. Now we're going to move on to hear a little bit more about the co-design element of the pre-bereavement support service from Maxine, who's joined by Jenny Beaumont, a Cruse bereavement volunteer who's been involved in the pre-bereavement support, and also from Leslie Pitchford, who supports her husband following his diagnosis of dementia. So over to you.
Hello, Jenny. Do we have Leslie? Do we have Leslie with us at the moment? Hello, Leslie.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to both of you, and thank you very much for joining us today. So initially, Jenny works as contributes her valuable time for supporting people as a volunteer, and Leslie has received some support from the service. So I just wondered if we could start, Jenny, with your journey and sort of how that started for you.
Yes, certainly. I think I went on one of the first one-day training courses, and probably Teresa and Margaret were there. And then I was fascinated and became involved in the Bereaved by Dementia project, the first one. And then I got involved in looking at resources for the training courses. And then I started doing the individual pre-bereavement work. And then I got involved with facilitating groups of carers for the Alzheimer Society and a young onset dementia group run by the Cardiff and Vale Health Board. And then since then, I've delivered some of the training for staff and bereavement volunteers. So it's been a journey. Like everything is a journey these days. And I've gained such a lot from it. I've been able to use skills and experience from previous jobs adult education, social work, counselling, to put them all together, along with my experience of both parents having vascular dementia. And I just find the whole thing extremely fulfilling and valuable. When you see a difference in the clients from when you first meet them to 6 sessions further on, and you know you've given them a space for their feelings to be able to express them, and you've helped them perhaps recognise that they need some support from somewhere, that they can't do it absolutely all of it by themselves. And of course, I learn from each client, because each client is different, each situation is different. And then sometimes I can use something I learned from one to suggest something to another one. So I absolutely love it, because I meet such amazing, wonderful people, and they tell me their stories. And it's fantastic.
Thank you. What would you say to somebody who might be considering volunteering now, Jenny?
Volunteering on this project?
Volunteering per se, but on this project also.
Oh, well, you get at least as much as you give, if not more. And as I say, it's the people you meet that's the motivating factor.
It's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Leslie, I was wondering whether you would like to share just a little bit about your situation before you accessed any support from Cruse, and just how the support changed things for you at that early stage.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, I was in a very broken place, and the phrase goes, I felt like a grease spot on the floor, and I truly did. I felt like I was in a busy church, and I'd retired from practice nursing, and I couldn't do farming anymore. And we didn't have a lot of help with David. He's got Lewy body type dementia, and he's had it for 10 years now, and he's at home. And coming to Wales was our dream come true 25 years ago. And we live in the most gorgeous place, and it's beautiful. But there was a stage about 6 years ago when I actually wanted to run away from all this. And I'm a Christian, and I shouted at God, what's it all about? Why am I here? Why am I here, and what's it all for? Because I just didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to move forward. So I was in a state of real brokenness. And then I got a referral to Cruse. I can't remember how. I think it was through the Alzheimer support. But you get your diagnosis. I mean, I'm in Caerau in Wales, and at that time you get your diagnosis, then you get sent on your way. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen the film The African Queen. Well, it's where the couple go down a river on a very old boat. And on the way, they get stuck on sandbanks, or they get flooded, and finally they get to the sea and they get torpedoed. And I remember it's Catherine Hepburn, and I remember her shouting, hello, darling, don't worry. We'll be all right. We've still got each other. And I thought, I haven't got David anymore. I haven't got any help. And I felt like we were literally clinging to the wreckage of our lives. In fact, I wrote a poem, clinging to the wreckage of our shattered lives. And that's how I felt. And then I met the lovely Jez, and it was just before lockdown. And I used to go to a local drop-in centre where there was a little safe room upstairs. It was for people with mental health issues, lovely people. And I just sat there. I didn't need to think about what shall I say, what shall I do, because I'm a doer. I'm a retired practice nurse. I fix people. I don't need fixing myself. Thank you very much. But I was very, very, very broken. And he got to chatting. And I also come from a generation of people that were told, you can stop that crying, else I'll give you something to cry about. Stop piping your ears, I'll give you something to cry about. So I didn't cry very easily. But Jez was it was a safe place. He was a refuge. He just sat, he listened, and he just sat there, and you knew that it was a safe place. And gradually I let down my guard, and it was all right to cry a little bit. And I'd sit there, and he always had a box of tissues, and he would just hand me a tissue. And there was no like, oh my goodness, you're going to cry. What do we do now? No, it's fine. Yeah. And then after quite a few weeks of talking, he asked me a very, very big question, which I'm very thankful about. And he said to me, Leslie, what are you going to do after David? Whoa. I've got no idea. I said, I've got no idea. Now, it was very okay for Jez to ask that, because he's very sensitive. He'd got to know me and I got to know him. And it was a question big in my head. If you were to put Leslie as a big picture, in the middle was what next? And in the middle was nothing. The grease spot on the floor is where I was. I've got no idea. So I said, oh, and he talked me through gently a few things. And he said, what about your faith? Yeah, well, my faith's there. Well, do something with your faith. Well, actually, I'm in the wrong church. I went to a non-conformist church. And just to cut it all short, I'm now training to be a non-stipendiary minister in the Anglican Church. And I'm coming to the end of my year's training and I'm going to be ordained in September. How good is that? He lifted me literally just by accepting me, acknowledging my presence, acknowledging I existed in the world. And by asking me, what are you going to do next? It was like saying, you still exist and the world still needs you. Because I genuinely actually thought I was on the scrap heap. In fact, what was really awful, we both did. And in the middle of his disease, David said, surely God did not create me to end my life like this. Well, what do you say? And when you're broken yourself, I'm so thankful to the Cruse organisation for helping me get back on my feet. I've just reconnected with Jez, thankfully, through Maxine, and we finally got an Admiral nurse. We had no help at all. And I'm very glad to say we've now got direct payments and we've got carers and we've got a package, which is not 24 hours, but we got residential care at home, which I supplement because I'm a nurse, but every day carers come in and it means I can stay at home. And I so loved the talk earlier, and I too have a garden on a polytunnel and it's my therapy, and dogs and cats and a chicken that comes in the house, and I'm looking at 30 glorious acres and I'm still here. But best of all, I'm here to serve in newness of life. And just to end this, there's the Cruse organisation takes its name from the story in Kings in the Bible about the widow with a cruse of oil. I'm right under, yeah? And it had all run out, and then Elijah turns up and says, give me a cake to eat. And she says, sir, all I have is this little cruse, this little bit of oil, and it's all there is. I'm going to make a cake for my son and I, and then we'll die. And he said, if you share that oil with me, it will never run dry. And that is the most beautiful picture. And somebody recently at a seminar said, you know that grease spot, Leslie? Well, God has taken it and it's never going to run dry. And from that little bit on the floor, it was always bright and shiny, but it was, it wasn't at one stage. It is now. And out of that little leftover of my life, God has done something new and exciting. And I'm also within our little local churches already talking to people in similar situations. And I just know that God's going to use my brokenness and he's doing something really beautiful. It's called Beauty for Ashes. And isn't that amazing? But I can honestly say in my darkest and most difficult place, and I was a coper, I'm a coper. When you can't cope, it's where'd you go? And I'm very, very, very thankful, that Cruse picked me up, helped me get to my feet, and then gently shepherded me while I got to my feet. And I'm still being helped now, because when your husband's he's in bed all the time now, and it's like life's like a seesaw. He's in and out. It's like the okey-cokey. Shake it all about. I'll tell you a joke, but and then I'm going to close because I've gone over, I think. But David, sometimes he knows who I am and sometimes he doesn't. And the other day I was giving him a nice big hug because I miss so much having hugs and love and kisses. Give him a nice big hug and a kiss, and he looked at me and he said, "Whoa, where's your husband?" I said, "You're my husband." But the other day I know he knew me for always. In that moment, and I walked in and he opened his eyes wide and he said, "Come and give me a hug." And I gave him a great big hug and a kiss, and I thought, that is so precious. And so yes, I'm blessed that with Lewy body type dementia he does know me. So certainly I love the whole tenure of this wonderful event because it is so encouraging and we all need that. And I hope it helps somebody out there, and certainly that's my way to move forward. I'm going to support financially for always, but hopefully I can help in other ways. So thank you for the invitation, and I hope that little snapshot has been useful to somebody else.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leslie, for being so generous and sharing your story. And Jenny, thank you both.
Both Leslie and Jenny, it's good to hear about your experiences, and in particular the positive, the huge difference that pre-bereavement support can make to people's everyday lives. So very inspirational there. Thank you very much for sharing that. I'd now like to hand over to my colleague Catherine Hess-Jones, who led the independent evaluation of the pre-bereavement support service, and she's going to share some of the key findings. We're also going to see a short video from Gwenllian Hughes, who reflects on her experiences as an early career researcher working on the evaluation, and also a short video from Lois Williams, who's a final year medical student at Cardiff University, and she worked on the evaluation last summer as part of her final year practice placement. So over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Diane. It's my pleasure here to try and share some of the evaluation work that we've been doing in partnership with Cruse here today. And it has been a team approach. I'd just like to introduce some of our team members to you here. We've got Diane, obviously, who's chairing today's event, who's the co-researcher with me on the project, has extensive experience in supporting carers and providing respite research as well. Maria, who will be joining us on the panel later on, is currently doing a PhD on providing respite for carers when somebody's living with dementia. And then we've got two clips of the researchers who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but have recorded some of their reflections on their involvement in the study. Gwenllian Hughes and Lois Williams. Now, just to give you a bit of background into the work involved in developing the research, obviously we collaborated really closely with Maxine, Norris and Cruse in terms of designing the evaluation to meet the needs of the project and to ensure that we were asking both the volunteers and the clients what they felt about the training and also the service provided. So it's quite a complicated process to develop this evaluation, and any measures that were used within the study had to be translated as well from English to Welsh, and that's quite a thorough process. We also consulted with Teresa Davies, who you've met today, who gave us some excellent suggestions in terms of ensuring that the online surveys were accessible and that they would be useful for people who are living with dementia to also give their feedback as well. So we developed the surveys, and following on from the surveys, we invited people if they'd like to be involved in interviews. And on top of the 80 emails that we've exchanged over the research study period, there's also been over 15 research team meetings with Maxine and also Sian Bidir from the Alzheimer Society as well. We were very fortunate that we did get feedback from both the volunteers and the clients. Obviously, not everybody would be involved in feeding into the research, but it's important that we respect clients' confidentiality, and we never asked for any contact details. The feedback on the training and also the service was provided anonymously. We had 37 volunteers give feedback on the training after the training was delivered, and also 70 who gave feedback on the training before they started the pre-bereavement training. And we were also really grateful for the 17 clients who gave us feedback on the surveys as well. So following getting ethical approval, which is a really important stage in research, we had 6 different information sheets based on the clients and also the volunteers before and after training, and also translated into Welsh, of course. 6 online surveys, so 3 in English and 3 in Welsh. And then from that online survey, Anybody who completed the survey were invited to share their contact details if they wanted to receive a copy of the report that we're launching today, and also if they'd be interested in talking to a researcher in more detail about their experience. And we were very fortunate that Gwenllian and Lois were able to interview 8 volunteers and 6 clients to get a deeper understanding of their experience. It's been amazing what Cruse have achieved over a period of significant challenge when everybody was in lockdown. They've still managed to perform above and beyond what they were required in the project. So 90 volunteers have been trained in this new pre-bereavement support. 27 clients have attended group sessions, which was a new element to the support in collaboration with the Alzheimer Society, and 124 individual clients had been beneficiaries of the support. So it's an excellent service that has proven its worth for certain. So I'm going to just ask you to just listen briefly to Gwenllian sharing her experiences on working on this project, and she's now moved on to work on eye support, which she'll also briefly mention in her presentation here.
So I'm Gwenllian Hughes, and I helped with the research with Cruse. I was responsible for interviewing clients that had previously gone through a questionnaire that Catherine and the team had created. Yes, interviewing clients about their experiences with Cruse, the service, and how valuable it was to them as a carer, and how essential it was to have their voices heard. And I found that many of them were in need of this service, and they found it invaluable, and they'd 100% recommend it to other people going through the same thing. So I was on the project from January to July, if I remember correctly, and I was working around 7 hours per week on the project. I interviewed volunteers as well. They found the training that Cruse offered really beneficial, and they found that it really supported them in supporting carers, and they didn't have the tools previously. So the training Cruse offered was very valuable in how they supported clients, because dementia caregivers misunderstood, I guess. So yeah, and I attended the training myself, and I couldn't fault it personally. So my current research project is working on an online self-help tool called iSupport. It was created by the World Health Organization. It has 5 modules altogether. Each one is educational, and it discusses different types of dementia, how to care for the person, and how to care for yourself as the caregiver. And it just helps with the responsibility of caregiving. One thing, my involvement with the Cruse project, dementia caregivers, their grief and their experience is sort of one of a kind. It was sad to hear the clients I'm speaking to now, carers again, the support Cruse offer is definitely one of a kind and essential to everybody across the UK. I'm a young carer myself, so I have personal experience. It might be close to home sometimes, but I feel that it's important to have a researcher that has personal insight. So it's important to have people working on improving support and services offered to dementia caregivers. Yeah, so I think, I'm going to stick to the dementia side of research for a bit.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for all your hard work on the project, and all the best. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Gwenllian.
Thank you. Diolch. So I'm Gwenllian.
So some comments from the interviews that Gwenllian conducted initially now with the volunteers who received the pre-bereavement training. I'll just let you have a look at these, saying that you need to get on board with people's journey. It made them more aware that the possibility of communication styles that people need, so more sensitive to communication needs, and seeing the person rather than the disease as well is a really important finding. Another suggestion here was maybe having an opportunity to meet somebody living with dementia as part of the training, which is part of the recommendations for the study as well. Now, to look briefly at some of the online survey responses, we were very lucky to have 17 clients feeding to the online survey, and of those, 12 were the main carers and all responded in English. So although we were keen to get feedback from people living with a diagnosis themselves, that wasn't what we achieved within the survey. But it's interesting to look at the responses of the carers in terms of the aims of the programme was to give people an opportunity to explore their own feelings of loss and grief after somebody receives a diagnosis of dementia. And these carers did certainly say that they had an increased sense of hope and an ability to better cope with the situation. They felt that they were understood, and the meetings with the Cruse bereavement volunteers did give them a sense of release, quite a cathartic experience, because they were able to share their experiences and feelings openly with somebody who wasn't within the family circle. The volunteers also completed surveys, and they really appreciated the quality of the training provided and the resources shared as part of this training. They felt that their knowledge has been improved through attending the training, and they had a higher sense of confidence in being able to support people living with dementia in terms of their volunteering work for Cruse. The majority of the referrals were coming through the Alzheimer Society, which shows the partnership was working well, but I think that there's scope to expand that, because this service is open to everybody in Wales. And also, although Cruse did have all the materials translated into Welsh, and they have got volunteers who can support people through the medium of Welsh, in terms of the research, we didn't see any evidence of that as yet, so it's important to highlight that as an element that's available for people. Just some quotes now from the people who were interviewed later on with Lois and Gwenllian, and these reflect really the importance of the service in terms of being able to talk to somebody who they felt that wasn't judgmental, there was understanding of their situation. Those that attended the groups, for instance, felt that was a very positive experience in terms of not feeling alone in appreciating that other people are going through similar circumstances. And there were also elements of this support being really valued when people are feeling quite isolated and alone. So next, I'd like to just share a video recorded by Lois Williams, who joined the study as part of her development and training as a student at Cardiff University, as she trains to become a doctor. And it's lovely to hear the experiences of both Lois and Gwenllian in terms of how this opportunity has influenced their future directions as they develop their careers as well. So I'll let you hear a bit from Lois.
Hello, my name is Lois Williams, and I am a final year medical student at Cardiff University. So as part of my student selected project last year, in my fourth year of undergraduate medicine, I was part of the research team with Cruse Cymru, and my main role during this time was interviewing, transcribing and doing thematic analysis, before then of course writing a final report evaluating the Cruse Cymru pre-bereavement support for those affected by dementia. So starting as a junior doctor this August, I do feel that I have a deeper sense really of empathy and understanding towards the struggles of both living and caring for a person with dementia. This is not only true on a professional level, but also on a personal level as well. So I am now, therefore, even more than before, really considering a possible postgraduate career in older person psychiatry. And my conclusion, so Cruse training did succeed in producing volunteers which were confident to provide informed and empathetic support, and this was all client central as well. This service was necessary in Wales to address the ongoing unique losses, in a way, associated with dementia. So at the time, the clients who received support were carers. It was therefore felt that because the support was available, obviously, for both carers and people living with dementia, the next step would be to encourage participation and explore other ways, really, to engage with people living with dementia who would also benefit from this support. And then other recommendations surrounding the ending of the support. I understand this is particularly difficult to get right, in my opinion, as the nature, especially of pre-bereavement loss, is a continuous one, and therefore it's hard to bring a definitive end to the support sessions. Perhaps more of a phased discontinuation approach would be something beneficial to consider as a way of easing the transition in a way. So thank you for listening today.
So just to finish off this section, we'd just like to share some of our recommendations. From the perspective of the volunteers, they really appreciated the training, but they felt a bit more time would be beneficial because there's a lot of information to take in. They also felt that the involvement of a person living with dementia would be beneficial in terms of that appreciation in the training. Volunteers sometimes felt that they would appreciate a bit more background of their clients, and in terms of their own self-care, maybe having a buddy system so that they could relate or discuss concerns or issues with other volunteers who are maybe a bit more experienced in this field. The support was certainly valued by the clients, and it's something that should be promoted to everyone. So it's obviously been really appreciated and valued by carers, but we suggest that this should also be encouraged to people who also receive a diagnosis themselves, because they are dealing with issues of loss and grief in the process of living with dementia as well. Clients sometimes felt that they'd like a roadmap, but that's quite difficult to be quite definitive in terms of where the service might take them, but that was one suggestion. And we do feel that this model of work has true potential to be expanded to support other people living with terminal conditions as well. So I'd like to thank you for your engagement, and I'd like to now pass on to Maxine Norris from Cruse and Sian Bidir from the Alzheimer Society to tell us what will happen next.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. So we're now going to hear about future plans for the service, both from Sian Bidir, who's from the Alzheimer Society, and also from Maxine as well. So over to you, thank you.
Before I give you some information regarding referrals, making a referral in the future, Sian just wants to share a few words with you.
Hello, I'm Sian Bidir, and I'm from the Alzheimer Society in Wales. And I'm delighted to be here this morning and to work with Maxine and Cruse and Bangor University on this project. Before I talk to you a little bit about the partnership, I just wanted to give you an overview of Alzheimer Society. It's the UK's leading dementia charity, and we provide information and support, fund research, campaign to improve care and create lasting change for people affected by dementia. Our dementia support is for people before a diagnosis and after a diagnosis, their families and carers, and anyone concerned with dementia, including health and care professionals, can refer to us. So as I said, I just wanted to mention a few bits about our partnership work. We've had a really long established trusted partnership with Cruse. And as Maxine mentioned earlier, we worked on a project prior to this around bereavement for people with dementia. Our work together has enabled us to share expertise between the organisations. So amazing support from Cruse around grief and loss. And for Alzheimer's, our expertise in working with people affected by dementia and their carers and families. Through the project, we've had an example of one of the benefits is that our frontline staff have been able to access the Cruse training, and through that training they have a greater understanding of grief and loss that they can use in their everyday work with people affected by dementia. And also through the project and the difficult time we've had through COVID, we've known that we could refer people to Cruse, that additional support. Our partnership has involved working really closely together, and we've had very open and honest communication. We've met, Maxine and I and the steering group have met regularly for meetings and also spoke regularly outside of meetings. So that's enabled us to make sure that the project has been on track and it's met its objectives, and then to tackle any problems along the way. And I feel that this close work and with Bangor University has enabled us to collect strong evidence for the project and to highlight a need for this work to continue. And I'm really glad that it is continuing and to have been part of this journey. Thank you.
So that just leaves me to be able to share with you referral information moving forwards. And we do have a slide, it can come up. There we are. So there's a dedicated email address for future referrals. This has been in place for the entire project as well, so people are very familiar with it. lossanddementia@cruse.org.uk. Also, you can refer by filling out a form, either third party or the person themselves, that they can access off the website. On the website, the Cruse website, there will be access to the telephone numbers for the local Cruse areas in Wales. Now, these are changing because we're going to have one single number, which is really going to make it easier for everybody concerned. But via these two avenues at the moment, future referrals can be received. This project was designed to be sustainable, the same as our last project, supporting people affected by dementia. And so the local areas now in Wales will be picking up these referrals, and the support will be continued in the same way that it has done over the last couple of years. Exactly the same service will be delivered and is able to be accessed in the same way. So moving forward, although the funding for this piece of work was finished at the end of this month, and the partnership between Alzheimer Society and ourselves will come to an end, we will still continue to be working together to be receiving referrals from Alzheimer Society and sharing information. And I'm sure that the paths will remain just as strong for working together as they have been as the formal partnership. Any questions, we'll be happy to try and answer them in the next few minutes in our little session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. So key findings from the evaluation are presented in a new report which we're launching today, and I'd just like to briefly hand over to Catherine and Teresa, who are going to say a little bit more about this. Thank you.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi.
Hi. So we've had quite a whistle-stop tour of how it all developed and what's happened since. So I was just thinking that this is all, you know, the video that we saw of you sowing the seeds and harvesting your produce. How do you feel now that you've seen the journey since you had that initial conversation with Margaret and met Maxine?
I feel more positive about things that are out, you know, services that are out there to help people, both carers and people with dementia, because people with dementia are grieving as well. They're grieving the loss of who they were and what they could do. You know, I miss me, although I'm happy now, but yeah, but it'd be nice if it was, this information was made broader for younger people with dementia as well.
Because we've heard, and with that, you know, there's been working with the Cardiff and the Vale Health Board and things. So I think there's potential now that the evaluation is so positive, and it's great to hear that this is continuing, that, you know, everybody who attends this session today will get a follow-up email with the report, and hopefully we can share the links even further across Wales going from today's launch. But when you think, there's been so much partnership work, hasn't there, in developing this and maintaining it, and how do you feel about the importance of people working together?
You have to work together because, well, to quote someone, there's nothing about us without all of us. But I always end with, we're all unique and wonderful, but together we're a masterpiece. And you've got to all work together. There's nothing, it all comes together with the professionals, the services, and the people who are actually living that life.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for everything that you've done for this project, but also for all the other raising awareness that you've done, and your generosity of spirit. We really are privileged to be able to work alongside you in our endeavours. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody who's involved in this work, you know, to help carers and people with dementia with their grief. So as I say, we're all a masterpiece together.
Lovely, thank you. And I think, you know, with those really wise words, I think we'll just move on to maybe a panel in case anybody's got any questions. We'd just like to invite everybody that's spoken today. Obviously, our fantastic researchers couldn't be here today, so they've had little videos, but hopefully there'll be any questions. Mae croeso I rywun ofyn cwestiynau yn Gymraeg neu yn Saesneg. Da ni'n croesawu unrhyw gwestiynau gynnach chi. So let's see if anybody's got any questions.
I know that Sian and Maria, you were keeping an eye on the chat. I don't know if anybody's posted any questions in there.
There was one question by John, but I think Maxine touched on it before, just talking about, obviously the project was initially ICF funded, but the pre-bereavement support has, am I correct in saying it's been sort of mainstream now into what you do on a day-to-day basis, so it's continuing?
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
And then a few of the questions about direct payments. I think everyone was really interested following your video, Teresa. So there's a couple of links up there about direct payments in Wales, but generally, I think the best advice is to go through your social services department of your local authority, and yeah, hopefully they'll be able to point you in the right direction.
Yeah, that's very true, and our journey supports that. The difficulty is getting hold of social services and getting somebody to come and talk to you is really, really difficult. Sadly, I had to fall apart before it happened for us, but in the end, we got the help we needed, and it's given me some really valuable information that I can share with others now. But yeah, we were in a crisis, and care homes were not for David. So we decided to keep him at home, and I'm very, very thankful. In the end, we had a social worker that had enough vision to say that David could have funding for residential care at home, and it's the same package of care. And we've just got a lovely group of people around us who can do it. One of the things about the Alzheimer Society I'm a bit confused about, Sian. I must say, on a very positive note, after we were left literally bereft and bereaved of our former way of life, the Alzheimer Society were the ones that picked us up, and for about 2 years we had a super support worker who was in touch regularly once a month, and they organised activities like there was a games afternoon, or there was tea, or there was a carers group, and we would meet together and share our stories and comfort each other, and it was absolutely brilliant. And then for some reason that all stopped, and very sadly, particularly in our situation, the support stopped when everything else stopped, and suddenly we had nothing and nobody. And I'm not sure whether that's a local story because the funding was stopped, but basically it was reported that the support worker said, we're not paying you to sit around, was told, we're not paying you to sit around drinking tea and coffee. We'll get local services to do that, like volunteers. But volunteers are brilliant if they're well trained. But if you've just got, you can't get together as a group of carers, I don't think, and have a shared support meeting unless you've got a facilitator. And one of the best things was, everything we went to, there was a support worker there who was like our anchor. We could talk to each other, but we could also talk to her, and she would guide us through. So now, do Alzheimer's Society still fund that sort of activity? Because that's what's desperately needed. And I must say that on a positive note, to start with, it was wonderful, and they were all we had. But I was like a bit shattered the way it all stopped. Was that just local, do you think, Sian?
Yes, it could have been. That obviously we do provide dementia support, and we do have a number of different groups running across Wales, group activities.
That's good.
So it could have been, we those activities are often funded by different streams of funding. So it could have been for that particular one that we didn't have funding, but there still are a number of groups like running, and I could, following the meeting, I could connect you up perhaps with within your local area with groups and
good. There is a very good one locally. It's called the Forget Me Not Club. I think it's independent, and it's marvellous. And I went a few times with David. I loved what Teresa said, though, and the picture of her in her allotment is wonderful, because one of the things David absolutely detested was going to groups. And he said he couldn't bear sitting around drinking tea and coffee and just talking, or going to the day centre. He absolutely hated it because it wasn't the sort of thing. So we're very fortunate that we could carry on with a lifestyle that he enjoyed here. I find Teresa totally inspirational, and it's like a window, isn't it? On I loved her quote. I've written that down. So thank you. Yeah, that's very helpful. But yeah, I think I just feel confused about where the funding comes from for what, and I didn't realise that actually the activities, although they come under the umbrella of the Alzheimer's Society, were funded by the local authority, who apparently pulled the plug. So
Leslie, there's a response in the chat for you as well. If you're able to see the chats, there's a phone number and a contact details for you there.
Yeah, thank you.
The number for Dementia Connect, so they would be able to. It's 0333 150 3456.
Hang on, I'll write that down. Could you say that again, please?
It's in the chats, Leslie. If you look under the box in the chat, you'll be able to write it when you
Okay, thank you. And I can see we've got a hand up from Jeanette Bourne. Jeanette, do you have a question?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Just to introduce myself properly, I'm the director for Cruse Bereavement Care in Wales, and obviously work very closely with Maxine. Just on the sustainability front for this particular service in Cruse, as Maxine has eloquently described, just because the funding's coming to an end doesn't mean the services being offered by Cruse is coming to an end. In fact, far from it. We've mainstreamed those services into our current core support services that we offer. And then just on a wider basis with regards to bereavement in Wales, is hopefully a lot of you will have seen the fact that our Deputy Minister now has, that's Lynn Neagle, has bereavement in her portfolio at the Senedd. And just in November last year, released the bereavement framework in Wales. So there's been a huge amount of work being going on in the background to put that framework together, which is essentially what we're talking about here, is all of us in partnership who deliver bereavement services to whoever, and the population in Wales are working together, and we're now sort of planning that delivery in a framework, which is the bereavement framework for Wales. So if anybody has an interest, do Google it, have a look at it, what that is all about. But it's just to assure you really that not just being bereaved by dementia, but all types of bereavement that Cruse obviously support people with is here to stay. And, you know, I can't praise highly enough this particular programme and our partnership with Alzheimer's Society. So thank you to Maxine and Sian latterly as our Alzheimer's representative for working so closely with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeanette. Does anybody else have, I'm mindful of the time, but if anybody else has one final question that they'd like to ask people, now's the time to ask. Okay, in which case I'd like to draw today's seminar to a close by thanking you all for your interest in the pre-bereavement support work and for your contributions. Should any of you want any more information about the evaluation, then please do get in contact with CADA colleagues, and likewise I'm sure that Maxine and Sian would be delighted to hear from you if you want to know more about the service going forward. Just to remind you, we'd be really grateful if you would take a few minutes to complete our evaluation form, and I understand that Rhea is going to post the links to the evaluation forms in the chat, and she will also be sending these out via email after the event as well. Okay, so thank you very much all.